All right, and we're live. All right, guys, welcome in to another episode here. It's your guy Noah here with For the Flock. I got a special guest here on the channel. We got my guy Michael Snyder, big Cincinnati Bengals fan, longtime best friend of mine. We talk a lot of crap to each other, and here we are to talk this Bengals and Ravens game. Welcome to the channel, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me back. It's good to be back. Looking
Yeah,
forward to
man.
this game.
I am
Always,
too.
always a good game.
Yeah, division, AFC North, Smash Mouth football.
It's
All
not
right,
for all the marbles we were expecting to be, but still should be a good game.
yeah, it should be. So, let me just pull up my notes right here, and we'll get right into it, man. So, if you guys weren't aware, me and Michael, the last 2 years, we have made it a tradition to try to go to the Ravens and Bengals game in Baltimore. All right, because we're both from the West Virginia, Maryland area, so it's not too far of a drive for us, and we make our way down there the last 2 years. Last year, the Bengals obviously got the best of us, and that was a painful game to watch. This year, we got the best of the Bengals, but here we are. The Cincinnati Bengals have already locked up the division, so congrats to the AFC North champions. Not exactly how we envisioned it, but here we are nonetheless. And this game, Michael, do you think are the Cincinnati Bengals putting all their stocks, all everything into this game? Are they putting all their starters in? What do you think?
Oh, they're definitely playing their starters. This is not the way they wanted to win the North, and they feel gypped and robbed, and it's the locker room isn't very satisfied with the way things went down. I mean, we gotta thank God for Damar's health and his recovery
Yes.
and all this, but outside of his health and all that towards the game side of things, it's not how things wanted to go. And players didn't even know that they won this morning. Like they interviewed Jamar and they told him, and he goes, "What?" And
Right.
like you can hear people in the background. Ted Karras he's been a fan favorite and a new addition this year. He's
Yeah.
overheard in the background saying, "Let's settle it the real way and F and win." Like they're not looking
They're
for
fired up.
yeah, they're not looking for this handout that the NFL gave them, and they feel gypped that they couldn't even control their destiny anymore. And
Right.
there's no shot at us getting the 2 seed, no shot of us getting the 1 seed, and it's just, I mean, it is what it is, but it's
Yeah.
not the way they
It's
wanted it to be.
it's frustrating, I think, for a lot of AFC teams besides the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Because
Yep.
all they had to do was, win this game. They got the number one seed, and all was well with them. However, I think the Ravens felt as if they wanted a chance, to fight for that division game the last week of the year. I think the Bengals, obviously, now correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you guys would have beat Buffalo, which I mean, you guys were handing it to them earlier in the game, right? Looking hot,
Yep.
looking fired up. If you guys would have beat Buffalo and then you beat the Ravens, you were in control of your own destiny to have the number two seed. Am I
Yep.
wrong?
We would have been the 2 seed. Bills would have been 3. Chiefs, if they would have lost today to the Raiders, we could have had the 1. But
Right.
no, all of that went out the door when the NFL stepped in and changed the rules ad hoc, and that's what it is.
Right. So now, any shot at getting the number two seed, you guys are basically hoping and praying for a Bills loss, right?
Yep, we need the Patriots to beat the Bills, and I mean it's possible. Divisional game, Patriots still have a pretty good defense, but
Right.
I mean, I,
Not the way you
we
wanted it to
we just
play
don't
out.
control our destiny the way we could have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it leaves a lot of teams frustrated. It sucks the way it worked out. Obviously, like you never want a player to literally die, like their heart
Yeah,
to stop on the field, and then have to, pick up all the pieces afterwards. But I feel, and I think you agree that the NFL should have um, made this game up in some way or did something to where teams still were in charge of their own destiny.
yeah,
And
and I don't understand because they have rules in play already for if a game gets canceled. So this
right,
whole I don't understand what they're doing, why they were okay with changing the rules now and adding the coin flip is really weird.
yeah, it
Like
is.
I don't. But I mean, it's been
Yeah.
voted on. It's in. We just got to go with it.
Yep. So here we are, and we're gonna dig into the meat and potatoes of this matchup. To be honest, man, if you're a Ravens fan on here, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you this is gonna be, oh yeah, we got a good shot at winning. Like, it's any given Sunday, right? But if you look at where both teams are at right now, the Cincinnati Bengals are clearly the favorites. They're playing at home. Um, they're going against a backup quarterback in an offense that has struggled to put up more than 13 points over the last few weeks, to be honest. So, yes, it's a division game. Yes, it's any given Sunday. But if you're a Ravens fan, like you're hoping that you can squeak out a win here, and that the Chargers can take a L tomorrow against the Broncos, and then you're sitting at the number 5 seed playing the winner of tonight's game between the Jaguars and the Titans. So not too optimistic, right? But if you're a Bengals fan here, you're probably licking your chops, thinking, all right, let's end this season right. Let's get hot, get some momentum into the postseason. So speaking of the postseason, right, and speaking of this Week 18 matchup, do you think how like technically and tactically planning are the Ravens and Bengals going to be doing, right? So like, are you going to try to hold plays and hold certain things until a possible rematch, or do you think you put all marbles on the table to win this game?
I don't think they change who they are. The Bengals know who they are, and that's who they are. They are a shotgun pass first team, hitting Jamar, and that's who they are. That's their
Yep.
identity. Their run game hasn't really picked up at all this year, as much as we'd like it to. So I don't expect any differences or any mind games to be played between these two teams, even if they could play
Yeah.
2 games back to back. It's not going
Yeah.
to change.
The way I like to envision quarterback Joe Burrow is, and I think this is why he gets a lot of the Tom Brady comps, right? Because what he does isn't always flashy, it isn't always sexy, but he puts the ball where it needs to go in the right amount of time. Yeah, he'll take some sacks here and there. Part of that's due to his offensive line, but part of it's due to himself too, right? Um, the big thing that he's really good at is getting the ball out on time.
Yep.
So if you're a Ravens fan here and you want to have any type of success against the Cincinnati Bengals, I think teams that have had success slowing down the Bengals, right, with this very rhythmatic offense in which Joe Burrow likes to get the ball out on time. He likes to go through his progressions. He has elite wide receivers, weapons all over the place. You want to try to disrupt them in their routes as early as possible. And I think that's why the Ravens were able to hold the Bengals earlier in the year to, what was it, 17 points?
Yeah,
Is
19 to
because,
17.
yeah. So, first of all, we gave our corners some safety help, which Wink Martindale refused to do. Um, and what that did is when you played some of that Tampa 2 and you put safeties over the top, it allowed some of these corners to come up a little bit because they're not worried about Jamar Chase flying past them, right? It allowed him to come up a little bit and press and play tighter coverage. And that's what you have to do is you have to get physical with these receivers because we know Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are scrappy physical corners. And that's like the DNA of the Ravens defense. They like to play tight press coverage. They like to be physical. But the Bengals have some really scrappy dog type of receivers too. So it'll be a fun matchup to watch. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you, and it's funny because I don't want to say the Ravens break the Bengals in Week 5, but that was the week that after that week, after that loss, they have stopped running the majority of their plays under snap or under center, and they
Yeah.
switched to their shotgun style offense. And
Mm.
so I don't want to say that like y'all were the cause of that, but like that was finally when they got together. Burrow talked about them, and it was like, this isn't working. We need to switch things up.
Right.
And so it was really cool to see that like they actually did change their offense to better suit the style that they're more accustomed to, and to
Right.
see the success from it. And along with the you were talking about the Tom Brady comps, one of the things that people compare him to is that he's not afraid to take his dump down,
Yeah.
and those he'll just quickly turn to Mixon or Pirine, and they'll get 4 or 5 yards, and it doesn't look like much, but as long as you're continually moving the sticks, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter how you get it done.
Right. And I think that's part of the reason why Joe Burrow has like a historically high completion percentage, right?
Mm.
Because he'll take what's there. He'll take what's easy, even if it's dumping it down to the running back. Sometimes that's something that we ask Lamar more of Lamar to do, right? Because
Yep.
Lamar has really honestly fell in love with the big play. He likes to, especially when we had Hollywood here in town. He tried to hold on to the ball, scramble around, and hit Hollywood deep, or throw it up to Andrews. And he really wanted to prove like he could throw the ball downfield. And
Yep.
sometimes we were like, Lamar, man, like if it ain't there, you don't have to be Superman every play.
Mhm.
Just hit your dump down. And that's what Joe Burrow's been really good at. And if you look back at even some not comparing Burrow to Joe Flacco, but people called Flacco like the check down master, right? Because sometimes it would work. Like
Yep.
receivers are covered downfield and he would dump it to Ray Rice and Ray Rice would pick up either 5 yards or bust one for 20. And
Yep.
it works, right?
Yeah, I'd much rather have a 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 7 as opposed to a 2nd and 10. Like you could do so much more, open the playbook more. And I know that Burrow was upset with not being able to do the big plays that he was the previous year, and he's voiced his upset at not being able to do so. But at the same time, it's like you got to take what the defense gives you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I think that's a hard thing for quarterbacks is whenever they are forced to be patient and they want to hit the big play and they want to hit Jamar Chase downfield and they want to hit Mark Andrews downfield. So it's a good thing and it's a maturation process in quarterbacks. And I want to just say shout out to all the guys in the chat here. We got Abdi, appreciate you being here, man. Tom, we got White, we got Black Noise Music in the house, Devon Allen, Steve-O, Tom, appreciate you guys being here. Just want to say what's up and appreciate you guys being here in the live stream. So let's go ahead and get right into injuries, man, because, this is something that John Harbaugh actually talked about. I don't think we talked about it yet because if you guys are watching for the first time here, if you didn't watch our previous live stream earlier, me and Michael were always texting back and forth about football. Anytime there's news, he sends me any type of news on the Ravens, I'll send him news on the Bengals. Most of the time we already know the news, but we just send it just in case, right?
Yep.
And then we talk about it. So what's going on with these Bengals injuries? And like I was saying, John Harbaugh said that the last 2 years, he said the Bengals have been very fortunate to be healthy, relatively healthy the last 2 years. No major, season enders besides Awuzie and who else did you guys lose?
Collins.
Yeah. So, but relatively healthy compared to most NFL franchises. So let's talk about the injury report.
Yeah. So Bengals injury report this week's been very clean. We had 2 players show up on it: Eli Apple and Hubbard. By the end of the week, Hubbard was removed from it. Eli's playing. They already said. Zach's very straightforward with his answers, and he tells you what's going to happen. And it's was already said that Eli's going to play. Someone who's not on the injury report, but I would still say is pretty injured, is Trey Hendrickson. He's dealing with a broken wrist, and the doctors told him that he can't get it worse. So the only thing that can happen is it hurts. Right. So that's a pain management for the game. And but other than that, there's no one on the injury report. Like you mentioned, Awuzie and Collins is out for the year. Those are huge, but other than that, we haven't really lost anyone. We've had a couple people miss 2 to 4 games here or there, like big players. We've missed Chase for a couple games. Reader was a huge one that we lost for 6 games.
Right.
But outside of that, it's really been pretty healthy. Burrow, coming off his appendectomy in the beginning of the year, was definitely took more of a toll on him than I think people realized. He lost 20 pounds, and he did not look him the first couple weeks, and I don't think it even till after you got our game the first time, it still didn't look like he was there.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Joe Burrow, it seemed like something was off in the early part of the season. It felt like he just wasn't hot. He wasn't confident. He wasn't I don't know what it was going on, but he didn't look like Joe Burrow.
No.
Steve-O said that Mixon and P. Ryan has about 1,000 yards combined in receiving. That's pretty incredible, man. It really is. So, since we're talking about injuries, we're talking about Reader. I think Reader is going to be huge in this game, right? Because Tyler Huntley, ain't going to light it up especially with the weapons that he has. If you give Tyler Huntley, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, I feel okay about him being a decent, putting up some damage in the air. He's not going to do what Joe Burrow does, but he'll be all right. Make some stuff happen in the air. But with this Ravens weapons that he has, we're talking about 36-year-old Deshaun Jackson. We're talking about recently cut from the Packers, Sammy Watkins. We're talking about Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman out for the year, right? So James Prochet, throw him in there. A bunch of really unwanted or unproven guys in the Ravens receiving corps.
Actually, Deshaun Jackson and Boyle were cut previous to this game.
They were released. Jackson and Boyle.
Yep, earlier
Breaking
today.
News.
Yeah, earlier today they were waived. So, I mean, Deshaun didn't really do much for you, but he was a weapon and still had to be covered. So, but yep. So you're going in with even less than what you had before.
Dang, man! Breaking news. You heard it here first. Yeah, man, that's crazy because Deshaun Jackson was like the one hope that you had. As far
the one deep threat. You're like, yeah, he can catch the ball, but no.
I wonder if it had anything to do with he put like a mad face on Instagram, and I wonder if he was frustrated with the offense and was just like, nah, man, if you ain't gonna use me, like,
just let me go.
Yeah. So not looking too hot on the receiving front.
No.
So DJ Reader, what we were talking about, right? I'm getting off on a tangent, but you know that Tyler Huntley ain't going to light it up. So what are the Ravens going to want to do? Run the rock. They have two very good rushers. Two rushers that I think on most NFL teams could be RB1. Gus Edwards can take a workload. He's a bruiser, downhill runner. He has some breakaway speed, and he's now starting to get healthy again, finding his stride after his ACL tear. J.K. Dobbins, same exact thing. He had the surgery earlier in the year. He played the Bengals, in our first matchup, then decided he didn't feel like J.K. He said, my knee, like the motion wasn't there, the range of motion wasn't there. I couldn't stride out. So he wanted to get that cleanup procedure. He did. And now we're looking at J.K. coming back into form, Gus Edwards coming back into form. Two good runners and a pretty good offensive line. Ronnie Stanley was a guy who was rotating snaps in our first matchup. Ronnie Stanley's back, and he's an all-pro left tackle for a reason. So he can maul guys in the run game. He can neutralize elite pass rushers, including guys like T.J. Watt, slowing him down. Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson. He can slow down some top edge rushers because he's an elite pass protector. But he adds so much to the run game, and this Ravens offense is going to want to run the ball on the Cincinnati Bengals. Having DJ Reader in there is going to throw in a wrench in that.
Oh, it's massive. Yeah, having him back it's huge because before he went down, they were averaging less than 2 yards a carry. He went out, it jumped up to like 4.9, and it's still skewing the average a bit. But having him back is huge on the line and helped a lot in the run game, and that's really the main point of concern that I'm, like you said, Huntley, I don't feel like he's going to light it up, and that helps us greatly in our lack of depth in corner. So if there's a team to be lacking some corner coverage, it's this game I'm happy for. But yeah, DJ Reader is huge to have back, but I'm still there to stop them. So just having him back isn't the end all be all.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, cool. I think you cut out for like a second. Yeah, man. DJ Reader gets a lot of push, takes on double teams. He's an underrated pass rusher as well, and he'll be going against Tyler Linderbaum. Tyler Linderbaum was being questioned about his size. That's why I bought the Tyler Linderbaum jersey, man, because he had that underdog, undersized mentality, but he just plays so scrappy. He wrestled competitively, and he knows leverage. He knows body positioning, and he's just a scrappy guy. And that's what I really like about Tyler Linderbaum. And he's been able to hold up against some top nose tackles pretty well. I think Vita Vea and Quinnen Williams gave him a little bit of troubles. those were the two probably worst games for Tyler Linderbaum against a massive, 350-pound type of nose tackles, which DJ Ritter happens to be himself.
Yep.
So if you're if you're an opponent of the Cincinnati Bengals and you know this team in and out, you watch them, every day, um, you follow everything. Where are you trying to exploit this team? Where's the weakness, right, in
Yeah.
the Cincinnati Bengals armor?
Yeah, they definitely have some, and like I said a little bit ago, the corner is one of the spots that's very weak. We had Awuzie, who was one of the top corners in the league before he tore his ACL, and now we got Eli Apple and Cam Taylor-Britt, who's a rookie,
Yeah,
and they've been doing okay. But I mean, if Eli's your number one corner, it's not really it's not
not
really great.
ideal. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not ideal at all. And having a rookie on the other side, he gets picked on a lot. Brady went to him a lot in the Bucks game, and it you can tell teams target him.
right,
Outside of the corner, we got the line, which was something huge coming into the game, into the whole season to talk about was, well, what are they doing to protect Burrow? What are they doing to this line's terrible. It's one of the worst in the leagues. What are we going to do? And they replaced four of the five starting linemen of this year, and they started out rough, very rough,
yeah,
and everyone started to just immediately dismiss the line, saying they didn't improve it. They were averaging, it was 3.6 sacks a game with 29 in his first eight, and it was bad, like
wow.
13 sacks in 2 games, and everyone's just like he's gonna break his own record of most sacks in a game. But
Yeah, which
since
is just outrageous because you were like, you thought that the Bengals turned a weakness into a
yeah,
strength. You were like,
absolutely,
Leo Collins, Kappa, Karras, Jordan
yeah.
Williams. Like you felt pretty good about the
Yeah,
line.
experience, Super Bowl experience, and all kinds of stuff. And so you're like, yeah, this line has to be better. And then it just wasn't. And then it seemed after Halloween, they turned a corner and they started averaging 1.4 sacks a game and 10 sacks in the last seven. So it's like they're finally turning that corner. And then
Right,
Collins goes down with his ACL. And so Akeem Adeniji is stepping in as right tackle, which is more of his natural position since he played some last year, but at guard, which wasn't his position of naturality. That's not where he's from. So
right.
I don't want to throw him under the bus because he wasn't very good last year, but he seemed to be holding his own against the Patriots for the 3 quarters he played there, and he did well the first couple of drafts or the drive and a half against the Bills. Like he looked
Yeah,
good. So I don't know how to judge him quite yet. We'll see, because this is going to be a good game to see that. And the edge has always been a struggle for the Bengals, and stopping the edge rushers has always been that weak spot. So I would say the edge is another big
right,
area that they can exploit. And another area is deflected balls. Like Burrow
right,
leads the league in batted balls, and it's just blows my mind that when you look at his stats, you'll see his picks, but more than half of his interceptions come from batted balls.
right,
And it's like you can't really do much about that because it's just the luck of the ball at at that point where it's going to float up and then someone else can catch it.
right.
But still, that's anytime the ball goes up, it's a fair game for anyone. So
Hmm.
if the line can get their hands up and start smacking balls around, there's a
Yeah.
chance for another pick there.
I will say that's something that the Ravens have been pretty good at this season. Um, their interior defensive line, especially between 6'8" defensive end Calais Campbell, Broderick Washington has been very underrated for the Ravens this year, batting down balls, and then Brent Urban is a really tall guy as well who can get his hands, and then Matabike. That was actually a thing that the Ravens focused on in the offseason, and especially in training camp, was trying to bat balls. Um, so that could be, well, watch out for that in this game as well. That could
Yep.
definitely be a big factor. And that's what I'm saying, guys. Like, if the Ravens want to come out here with a win, which we've seen the worst team in the league beat the best team in the league, and we've seen, the best team in the league beat the brakes off the worst team in the league. But it's any given Sunday, right? You
Yep.
never know about turnovers. You never know. Sometimes, like, someone muffs a punt or stuff just happens. Crazy things happen in a football game,
Yep.
and to be honest, man, the Ravens, like, yeah, we don't have Lamar Jackson, but we still have a very talented roster. I mean, you look
Especially
at
on
the
defense.
yeah, you look at the defensive side. I mean, I think it's like 7 first-round picks: Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, JPP, like a bunch of guys, right? And then you look on offense. You still have a very good offensive line, top 5 in the NFL, according to most people. Talking about one of the best tight ends in the NFL, probably top 2 behind Kelsey,
Yep.
and then 2 very good running backs. So the place that you're really weak at is receiver, and that's the place that you would really want to exploit the Bengals because the Bengals are thin at corner right now. Awuzie's down. They got a rookie and Cam Taylor Britt out there, and then Apple competes. He's a competitor, but he gets beat sometimes. It just is what it is. I know like people like to roast him on social media and stuff, but he's not a terrible corner. Like not nearly as bad as what people try to say. So let's look at some matchups. What are your top matchups to watch in this game?
I think we've discussed a couple of them already. Like Adeniji on Houston is going to be a big one for me.
Okay.
Just that edge, just seeing if Adeniji can do it. Because we had another right tackle that was in the line for discussion of starting, who is more built like Collins. He was a pass rushing, powerful man, and they decided to not go with him and instead go with a more of a pass pro kind of guy instead of a rusher. So
Right.
that'll be interesting to see if they're just planning on, say, screw the run and we're better at passing anyway, so let's try
Yeah.
to do that. So
Right.
I feel like that's a huge one to see is just if Adeniji can hold his own and not have to rely on any secondary help because I'd rather not see people in the line getting help on double teams and stuff. Like I want you
Right.
to hold your own.
Yeah.
Uh, Another big one is DJ Reader against Linderbaum. We
Yep.
talked about that. And yeah, DJ Reader against the run game. Just get that big boy in there and stop the run. Like you
Yeah.
just watch some highlights of him. He'll shed 2 tackles and still be able to get a fist of jersey on the running back. Like
Right.
he's a freak. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Really is.
he's very underrated and PFF has him at 89 overall for the year. So like
Wow.
he's good. And
He's
yet
playing elite football.
he is, but wasn't even considered for like the Pro Bowl or anything, which it's
Yeah, it's
just how it
crazy.
is. Missing 6 weeks isn't going to help.
Right. Yeah, injuries always play a factor in that type of stuff.
Yep.
If we look at, I'm glad you brought up Houston and Adeniji because Justin Houston was a guy who really gave the Bengals offensive line some troubles in 2021. That was like the one bright spot of the defense that was very depleted. It was like Houston constantly harassing Joe Burrow. It felt like he was, even if he wasn't getting the sack or the hit, he was causing some pressure that Burrow was feeling, right?
Yep.
And Justin Houston, it's crazy, man, because we're talking about a 33-year-old vet who can still he still has just enough strength and power, the old man strength, but he still has all of like the mental aspect of the game when it comes to technique of rushing and
Yep.
like how to set up offensive tackles and stuff. So he's a technician as a pass rusher with that old man strength. It just still can bully a guy into the lap of a quarterback. So it'll be fun to see Justin Houston against this offensive line because he didn't play in our first matchup against the Bengals in Week 5. So glad you brought up that matchup. And one matchup I want to specifically highlight is Marlon Humphrey versus Jamar Chase. Marlon Humphrey is our best corner. Jamar Chase is your best receiver. You gotta find a way to try to slow down Jamar Chase. Now, Marlon Humphrey did a pretty good job of that earlier in the season. Jamar Chase, I think they made it a thing to get him the ball, especially on some quick screens and stuff where they try to just get him the ball and see if he can pick up 8 yards or something like that. And in our when Jamar Chase was a rookie in 2021, he went absolutely bananas on this defense. Marlon Humphrey was embarrassed. He said, "That's not me. That's not Ravens football. That's not like I hold myself to a higher standard." because we knew he was capable of holding top receivers in check. I've seen this guy like lock up DeAndre Hopkins. I've seen him lock up Stephon Diggs. So I knew Jamar Chase was good, but to see, Jamar Chase putting up 200 receiving yards was like, all right, Marlon, that's like not cool, man. And he came back with a fire and a competitiveness against Jamar Chase in that matchup. So that'll be another matchup to see the second time around.
Yeah, I agree with that. And back to the week 5 breaking of our offense that you guys did. It's ever since then they're not scared to move Shamar as
Yeah,
primary. He was an outside receiver, and they would send him on mostly post and go routes and the occasional slant. But now they're moving him back. They've put him in the backfield as like a running back and having him go out from there. They've switched him out with one of our wide or running backs was out wide, and they moved him inside. And so it's just like they're finally starting to concoct some weird looks, which I've appreciated because I hate that they've just always been deep ball, deep ball.
yeah,
And so they're finally like using him to more of his potential as a slippery screen, make yards for yourself kind of receiver.
yeah. Which that's really good for an offense whenever you can get creative and find ways to get the guy the ball. That's how like if you've been a Ravens fan the last few years, that's how we felt about Devin Duvernay. It was like they would send this guy on like a deep seam post or a go route to clear out routes for Mark Andrews because he has some speed, or every once in a while they'd give him a jet sweep or something. But we were like, well, this guy has the ball. If something good happens, like at 99% of the time ends up in a first down or a big play. We're like, just get Devin Duvernay the ball. And Jamar Chase has that, that elite ability, just like Devin Duvernay with the ball in his hands to make guys miss, to be
Yep.
slippery. And he has, elite track speed as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they decide to double chase any, or if they're going to leave Humph out there on an island with him, because we've got some crazy. It's just like a three-headed monster in Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, and then you have practice squad Trenton Irwin coming up, and he's got 5 touchdowns this year, and it's
Yeah, it's
it's it's just
crazy.
crazy to see that the elevation that Burrow has in making practice squad wide receivers look high caliber. Nothing
Right.
against Trenton, but he's not Chase.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Lenny, appreciate you being here. Black Noise Music. Veronica says, rest most of the starters. It ain't worth it. I see your point there. I'm assuming you're talking about the Ravens. The Ravens, they're not winning. They're not. I'll put it this way. What are the odds that the Ravens win this game and the Chargers lose? Not very high, right? You would probably say the Ravens have a 30 to 40% chance of winning this game. And, the Chargers have probably a 70% chance of winning their game. So, not very likely that the Ravens get the number 5 seed. So, what are they playing for then? You know, so if you're the Ravens, this is something that John Harbaugh talked about. He said you're going to have to play some of your starters. He's like, you can't sit everyone, which made me automatically think, okay, so you are sitting some of our starters. That'll be really interesting to see because when it comes to this whole weird situation, right? If the Ravens beat the Bengals and we play the first round, there's a 50-50 shot it's in Cincinnati and it's a 50-50 shot it's in Baltimore. Um, which if you're a Cincinnati fan is super frustrating because you're like, I wanted a chance to beat Buffalo and then it wouldn't have mattered, right?
Yep.
But if you're a Ravens fan, it's also like, well, I wanted a chance to play for the division if Buffalo did beat Cincinnati, which was a very real possibility. So like I see why they did it, but it's a very weird situation. Um,
Hmm.
it's just so much going into this to see how it plays out because to me it's more important. I would rather play away in the playoffs in Cincinnati with a healthy roster than play at home and possibly, have an injury to Mark Andrews or Ronnie Stanley or something like that. So that's kind of where I sit with it. I don't think the coin flip, because you could beat the Bengals, have the matchup, and then still lose the coin flip.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so many better ways it could have been handled, and that I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the way the NFL decided to handle things, and to change rules mid-season is never been done, and
Yeah.
it
What's
just
the point of
feels.
having a policy written?
Yeah, and they already have a policy for canceled games, so why they didn't follow that, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but if I was the Ravens, I feel like you play most of your starters just to, you don't want them to get the rust, and you don't want them to, you want to see what you got, like, going into
Right.
the season, like the postseason. You don't want to go in and be like, well, I don't know who's, like, now without Deshaun Jackson, who's going to step up for him. Like, you need to. I feel like you need to find the people and the rhythm, and
That's true.
I don't.
You want to go into the playoffs feeling good about yourself. You want to have
Yeah,
confidence. Yeah.
yeah. And I looked. They got the Chargers with a 79% chance of winning against the Broncos.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
so
So I was pretty close on that
yeah,
estimation. What do they have against for the Bengals Ravens game?
it was not very good. 73-27.
Yeah, and that's about what I said, 30%.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, but any given Sunday, and
right.
I'm not a big fan of just looking off the percentages and being like, it's a done deal, even though this is the first time in Bengals history they are 9 or greater point favorites against a fellow AFC North team.
Yep. That's
So
pretty cool to see.
it is.
At home against a backup quarterback, division rival nonetheless. So to have that 9 point
Yep.
favor, the Ravens are probably going to take that. Like, all right, cool. You think we're 9 point underdogs? So John Harbaugh's going to try to get him fired up. We know how he does, but we'll see if it matters ultimately in the end. One thing I want to say is appreciate you,
Yeah.
Kenneth, being in the chat. Lenny, Black Noise, Veronica, you guys are awesome. Shout out to you guys. Ronnie Stanley is always hurt. We need a better left tackle. We've been putting up with this for a few years, and he's in and out. Yeah, it is very frustrating, especially when you pay a guy like $90 million and then he gets hurt. But it is what it is. Like, it could happen to anyone. And he hadn't really shown a history of injury before we had paid him all that money. So one thing I want to point out, to give you, to Ravens fans, a little bit of hope for this game, is that in our first matchup, we obviously won. Okay. The Bengals have since then became better, right? They've started to click on offense. Offensive line started to play better. However, I will say there is much needed ammunition coming back. No ammunition that is as powerful as Lamar Jackson, obviously, but ammunition nonetheless that they didn't have in their first matchup in Week 5. So Gus Edwards, okay, he will be playing this week. He did not play in Week 5. He's a difference maker for sure. J.K., we talked about him, was not J.K. when he played the Bengals. So a healthy J.K. is a difference maker. Ronnie Stanley being at full health, he's a difference maker. He was rotating with Patrick McCarry. Tyus Bowser is a starter that was not playing in Week 5, who will be playing, who can help get after the quarterback, as well as Justin Houston. So you're talking about probably your two best edge rushers are coming back for this game, in which they did not play in their first matchup. And then you're talking about your two running backs and your left tackle. But then you subtract Lamar Jackson from the equation, it probably washes it all out anyways. But we have
stacks the defense, though.
Yeah, I will say that I have. Oh, and the other guy I will say, Roquan Smith. Obviously, he wasn't part of this first matchup.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's all right. And then I will say we have seen Tyler Huntley play really good football. There's reports that this season, in the last few weeks in particularly, that he's been dealing with shoulder tendonitis, and it doesn't help with the weapons he has. But I will say there was a couple games last season where he took over for Lamar that he was very efficient, getting the ball out on time, accurate, and got it done. But remains to be seen if he can do it against this Bengals defense. This Bengals defense. Tell me about what are your overall thoughts on this Bengals defense? Like, are they a championship caliber defense?
Yeah.
Or do you think the offense is going to have to carry them, to a championship.
I would say I put them about the same level as they were last year. We had pretty much the same people coming back last year to this year. It seems that the D line is struggling more though to get the sack numbers. They're getting the pressure and the hits, but they're failing to get the sacks. So that's a little frustrating to watch. It's like Hendrickson, if he had a half a second more, would have had a sack or two more. But it doesn't seem to line up that way. But outside of them, they're pretty solid. They got outside of the Ravens. I think we have one of the top linebacker crews that's underrated in the NFL. We've got Jermaine Pratt, who's the highest rated uh, linebacker in the NFL in the past couple of weeks. Got
Hmm.
Logan Wilson, who's always been solid.
Yep, I
And
love
so,
Logan Wilson.
yeah, so like having those two come in, solid. Got a good off or D line. They're solid. The corners, eh, leave more to be desired. But then our safeties, I would say they're one of the top in the league as well with Von Bell and Jesse Bates. They've been very, very well this year.
Hmm.
Looking to see Von get his extension. So I'm looking forward to that this off season.
Yeah. So talking about extensions, we have a couple other topics we'll talk about it. But since we brought it up, what's priority for this offseason as far as extending Bengals players? Obviously, you got your quarterback Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Burrow's
After
number
that,
one.
okay. After that, where do you see the priority falling?
I think they're going to try and work out a deal with Jesse. It just depends on how
Okay.
Jesse reacts. He wanted to be a top 5 safety paid, but he hasn't had that production. So
Hmm.
he still doesn't have that production. So I don't think he deserves that top 5 money. Does he deserve money? Yes. Should we pay him? Sure. But if he might be the first collateral in paying someone else. Like I
Right.
would rather see Von Bell, T Boy or T Higgins and uh, Burrow get paid
Right.
before. So
Now let me ask you this, man. You're gonna have to shell out a lot of money for Joe Burrow. Obviously, he's gonna be top 2, 3 quarterbacks paid in the NFL. Lamar Jackson is gonna want that as well, and you're gonna have Jamar Chase the next year as wanting to get paid. So, let me tell you this, man. Jamar Chase could
he's
top
gonna
the
reset the
market.
market.
Yeah,
He's gonna reset the market.
he could reset the market. I'm talking more money than Devontae Adams and other guys.
Oh yeah.
So, do you think there's any way they can afford to shell out all this money to Burrow and Higgins, knowing darn well that they gotta keep Jamar Chase here, and they're
Yeah,
gonna
well,
have to
one
pay him for
advantage
that?
they have for Chase is they got the 5th year or they got the franchise tag, so they can always do that. They got the 5th year option to keep him under contract an extra year, so
Right,
they can always push it back. They don't have to sign him immediately into the 3rd year or the
right,
start of the fourth, like they will with Burrow. I don't expect them to wait for Burrow because quarterback market's only going to keep rising. So the sooner you can get your quarterback under that lock, then a bad deal now looks great in 2 years.
yeah,
So if they can get that done, I don't see a problem with Chase. The cap's just going to skyrocket now with all these new
yeah,
TV deals that they're signing and stuff. So I don't
yeah.
see an issue
Makes
with that,
sense.
but it's always something. And as a lot of analysts say, the cap's imaginary.
Yeah, and dude, that's what I've been saying about Lamar, right? Because you talk about you pay a guy, it seems outrageous, and then the next 2 years, like the cap goes up and another guy gets paid more, and it doesn't seem
Yep.
too bad.
I remember
Like,
laughing at the Chiefs for the deal for Mahomes for 10
yeah,
years, almost 500 million. But now it's just like, oh yeah, 45 million for a quarterback. That's not bad.
yeah, not bad. That's a discount, man.
Yeah.
But like, dude, pay Lamar Jackson. You've seen what this offense is, right? You said it yourself. Like how much Lamar is this offense? How much
Yeah.
they ask him to do? We've seen what
Mhm.
it is without him. But with Lamar Jackson, we're averaging over 25 points a game. Earlier in the year with Bateman, you're averaging 33 points a game. You have Tyler Huntley, now you're averaging like 15 points a game. Like, I don't know what else the Ravens need to see to just pay him fully guaranteed money, if that's what it takes, man. Because there's going to be other guys. I promise you, Deshaun Watson's not going to be the last quarterback in NFL
Ah,
history to get.
I don't know
Guaranteed
about
money.
that. I don't think teams are still going to shell out, especially the way Deshaun's looked the past couple of weeks. Like, he's not looking good. And to know that the team's stuck with them because it's all guaranteed, like,
Right.
unless he starts turning it around and looking like vintage 20, I don't know, whatever it was, 2018 Deshaun, whenever he was good, like, it doesn't look like a good deal
Right.
at
The one
all.
thing I did see kind of floating around as an option is, do you remember? So like Deshaun Watson was extended, I think, 5 years, 250, fully guaranteed. Right. One thing I'm seeing for a possible Lamar Jackson solution would be, okay, let's guarantee it, but let's do 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, how about a 3 year 150? Like, I can deal with that, because if for whatever reason he tears his ACL or something, it's not a 5 year commitment,
Yeah.
right? It's a 2 or 3 year commitment.
Yeah. But
So
from what I saw, Lamar doesn't want a 2 or 3 year deal. So that's where
right,
someone's going to have to give, and or someone's not going to give, and it's just
yeah,
going to have to separate.
we'll see,
So,
man. It'll be the biggest topic of this offseason.
yep. But I
Um,
expect the Burrow deal to get done like the Kappa free agency deal. 5
yeah,
seconds in, give him what he wants, keep him around.
yeah. It's always like it's better to get it done early, man. It's just better
Oh
to
yeah.
have it off the weight off the shoulders,
Yep.
because like it just seems to be a distraction and a
Mhm.
just a lingering sense of like, will he be here next year? Like
Yeah. And
it
the
just
whole recent press conferences with Harbaugh, like, you just don't know what to believe because he's not a very straightforward guy to begin with, but then saying things like he doesn't know and nobody knows, kind of like, is it the injury? Is it the contract? Is it he's saving himself? Like, it raises a lot of distractions that I don't think the team needs.
it's murky, dude. It's very
It is.
murky, and
And
it's
players
frustrating
don't
as
like
a
franchise tags.
yeah.
So,
It's very frustrating as a Ravens fan. I'm sure you can imagine if you guys were in this scenario with Joe Burrow, like you'd be losing your mind, right?
yeah.
So let's get into some other topics, man, because this is a big one. Obviously, very important to the overall vibe of the game. This is the first game back, for the Bengals since the traumatic injury of Damar Hamlin.
Yep.
How do you think the team responds to this? Has there been any talk in the locker room or anything like that?
The past couple of days, it's been pretty quiet in the locker room towards it. They've avoided asking them questions about it, but then, like the past day or two, they've started opening more up, and people like Tyler Boyd, who played with him in Pitt, are saying things like, "Now that he's recovered, I feel like I can go out and play." So it's
Right.
like, were you not going to before? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate, but I know that there's been talks about other teams not surprised if players retire and quit after such an experience. And I
Yeah.
know the Burrow was the guy who, for the Bengals, wanted to go over and talk to the Bills locker room and stuff. So, like, it it's scary and it's unprecedented, and so I'm not surprised. But then at the
Yeah.
same time, as Zach Taylor said, they know what they signed up for. Like, this
Right.
is a violent sport. They know at any given moment something could happen. But to
Right.
actually see it happen is different than knowing something could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It makes you more aware. Like I actually saw earlier today. I don't know if you were watching the game or not, but a few hours ago, I saw Mac Hollins for the Raiders catch a ball over the middle, and he went down early. Like there was no one there. There were some defenders closing on him, but he went down to the ground, realized no one touched him, and then got back up.
Mhm.
Because I don't know if that had anything to do with it,
Yeah, hesitant to
but
want to
but you
hit
got to
someone.
think that if put yourself in the player's shoes, right? You're a professional football player, and you just watched another professional football player that plays a position of the same as yours or a similar position. Literally, their heart stopped beating on the field. Like that has to give you some type of hesitancy. But I will say that seeing that he's okay now,
Yep,
that changes the atmosphere. I think it's a completely different
absolutely.
conversation if like he's still in critical condition or God forbid he had passed away. I think like
Mhm.
that would be hard to deal with. That would be hard to move on from.
Yeah, I
But I
agree with
also
that.
think that there was a factor whenever the first snap of football was played today,
Yes.
and these NFL football players were seeing, hits happen, and it was like, okay, we're back to normal.
Yeah, and I was talking earlier that I was glad the Bengals or the Bills were not the first team to have to get back out there.
Yeah,
Seeing neutral teams get out there to kind of ease things back in and continue the flow of things, I think was good to see because there it is extremely rare for something like that to happen, and so to kind of have the league slowly come back together and press forward, I think is a good thing. And as Zach Taylor said, we can remember and continue to pray while also pressing forward.
right.
So,
Yeah, man. So this will be a fun one to watch because there is a lot on the line for both teams. The Bengals will be fighting for the 2 seed because the Bills game will be going on simultaneously.
yep.
So it's not like you can score, watch, and then make a decision afterwards. Um, the Ravens could be possibly playing for a home game, and the Ravens could also be playing for the number 5 seed. Which, if you're a Ravens fan, you feel confident, man, with or without Lamar Jackson, that you can beat Jacksonville or the Titans.
Man, give you
Like,
the Titans, man. I'd want the Titans first.
yeah, I'd take the Titans in a heartbeat.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I think the Ravens, with or without Lamar Jackson, could take care of that business. Without Lamar Jackson against Buffalo or the Bengals or anyone else, I'm not feeling too good about it. If I have Lamar, I'm like, all right, I feel good about it, but it's a toss up type of thing. Um, but we'll see, man. So a lot on the line for both teams. It'll be fun to watch. I appreciate you for coming on here and providing us an update on all things Bengals and providing some insight for us. Is there anything else that you want to say or any other closing notes you got?
Not really. I think that the big things for me that I'm looking forward to seeing is just who's the quarterback. Because I know, like you said, Huntley's been doing with his shoulder, and then I also saw a wrist pop up. So
Yeah,
that makes me a little curious if Brown will actually get the start and who fills in for Deshaun Jackson on in the wide receivers. Like it,
yeah.
it it's just a lot of unknowns on your all's offense, and that intrigues me.
Yes. It intrigues me while also making me very nervous. It's a little bit funner for you to watch it than for me, but
It is.
it'll be fun, man. It'll be fun, and I'm sure we'll be talking throughout the game, and it'll be a good one, man. So appreciate you for coming on, and thanks everyone for coming out to the live stream. I appreciate